Extremely excited to be back with our third installment of the Rusk Freedom Academy podcast. I'm here today with my lovely model Haley, and we are going to show you guys the importance of a face frame and what a face frame and kind of understanding how to layer hair can really help update and create a completely different look inside a haircut without having to change too much. Because I think that's one of the things that's really important today is that a lot of clients are talking about growing their hair out or they want to salvage their length, but they want something new, they want something fresh, they want something different. And so how do we incorporate that into our daily life behind the chair? Because as you guys all know, with the Rusk Freedom Academy, our job is to bring value to you behind the chair. And so you see, we've got Haley's hair here. What we did is we washed it and then we did just a simple blow dry. We aren't trying to overstyle the hair before we do the dry hair cutting because ultimately we want to see how that hair lives. Where are her colics? What's going to happen on the daily basis when Haley is out in the world doing her stuff? We did a pre-blow dry product application of our volume mousse. You can see this right here, just to give us a little bit of memory, a little bit of hold as we're going through with the blow dry mixed in with, got to grab the right one, our blow dry balm right here. And so these are two products from our eight product SKU styling line that is launched. It's out now. It's just an unbelievable line, and they're meant to be mocktailed together. That's one of the great things about this product line is that when we created it so that it wouldn't be heavy on the hair, so that you can mix and match these products in order to get the looks that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so one of the most important things when you're creating this kind of like face frame situation or starting this off is setting your boundary, setting your, what I like to call point A. And point A is going to be where is the shortest part of that face frame going to sit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a very wispy amount of hair, and I'm going to set up that guideline that Haley and I spoke about prior to coming live with you guys. All right, as you can see, we're just taking a little bit of the hair out of the way and then clipping away the hair we don't need so that we are certain that we're really just setting up this point A. All right, so we've got our little section of hair right here. When Haley and I spoke, we talked about this hair sitting kind of like right under the tip of her nose. And so what I'm going to do is come in here like this and just set that guideline ever so slightly. So right there, I know I've got that section cut into the right spot, sitting directly underneath the tip of her nose. Then we're going to take and we're going to converge our little triangle that we created. We're going to cut it at elevation, right? So about a 45 right here, maybe a little higher. And we all know that when we come through here and we elevate this section, we start to create softness. And the whole goal of this face frame is for this to be soft. And what we're going to do is we're going to take very small sections because this is detailed work. We're creating a very detailed face frame. When you think about cutting hair, what you need to think about is you have about roughly 5 foundations that you can create to cut off of, right? And so the foundations are going to be a blunt haircut, a graduated haircut, a long layer, a short layer, and a disconnection. Everything else is decoration, okay? So this is a decoration portion of the haircut. So when we do the decoration portion of the haircut, we want to make sure that we're coming through and we're taking these sections nice and small and detailed. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this section, we're going to over direct. As you can see, I'm over directing across Haley's nose. And I'm just going to start to chip away at that hair a little bit. So by over directing this hair across Haley's nose, we're going to start to salvage length there. And what you're going to start to see created is a very nice half moon shape. And then that half moon shape, when Haley pulls her hair back, or if she is just styling it all down, it's going to allow for her to be a little bit more playful with that face frame, as opposed to just cutting it really strong and blunt, and then coming through and using our thinning shears or our texturizing shears in order to soften it, because we're going to start to lose length if we do that. This way, we're definitely making sure that we keep the integrity of point A. So the shortest portion. And that's really one of the ways, guys, to really kind of get a client unsatisfied in the chair is having a discussion throughout the consultation portion, setting that space, and then by the time you're done, it's a half an inch to an inch shorter because you needed to soften it. So we're doing this from the beginning of Haley's face frame. Next section. And you think about these sections are pretty vertical, so they're kind of going straight up and down, and they're about a quarter of an inch thick. So by keeping them at a quarter of an inch thick, we are able to make a much more detailed face frame. Next section. We're going to pull this up. Cross face, just like that. We're ending up around the side of Haley's opposite eye. It's kind of where that over direction goes to. And our fingers are parallel to our subsection. So our subsection is very vertical. So that means our fingers are vertical too. We're not taking them at a diagonal like this. We're making sure that those fingers are very vertical so that when we're going through, we're giving ourselves a guideline of that subsection with our fingers alone. And you can start to see this half moon shape really starting to take place. All right, so now we've basically done what we like to call what would be kind of a fringe section to that face frame. Okay, so the next section that we take is going to be a little bit bigger. And we're going to take that section, and that section is going to sit directly in front of Haley's ear. So turn your head this way, Haley. So if we take this section, you can see we're going to tuck that behind Haley's ear. Right there is our total section. Take this, we're going to comb it down, cross face, vertical fingers. We're going to come in and we're going to start to remove that hair. So now look at all the length we've salvaged on the bottom here for Haley. So that perimeter stays nice and strong, but yet we've opened up this interior to showcase a little bit more of Haley's jaw, Haley's lips, the cheekbones, all the good stuff that we're trying to accentuate when we create this face frame. All right, so now we got to do the opposite side. So same rules apply. I'm going to take small sections in the beginning in order to create this very detailed face frame. Fingers parallel to the subsection, so they're pointing straight down. And then when we come in here, we're using just a soft chipping technique in order to remove that hair. Now, one of the things you'll notice that when we go through and we chip that hair, our blade of our shear is going in extremely parallel with the hair. A lot of times when people use chipping techniques or point cutting techniques, what I see is little care to the angle at which the blade enters and cuts the hair. And so when we're cutting the hair with this blade, we want that blade to maintain the same angle as it goes through the section that you're cutting. By maintaining the same angle, what we're doing is we're making sure that we're going to have even texture throughout that face frame. So if that blade angle is going multiple ways, and what I mean by that is a lot of times we see things like this happen. I'll show you right here. You see people come in and they just start going like this. You're doing multiple different textures inside that face frame that you're then going to have to come through and soften. And so if you're coming through and softening, then all of a sudden what we're doing is we are taking away the length that we discussed with Haley in our consultation. And so by making sure that when that blade goes through the hair when we're cutting it, that it has the same trajectory or the same angle, we're going to have a nice even face frame the first time, so we're not going to have to overcut Haley's face frame. Next section. Now again, these are 1/4 inch subsections taken vertical. Turn your head quick. So you can see 1/4 inch subsection taken very vertically, and it ends itself this kind of like fringe section will end itself right around the temple. So this will be the last section we take like that, and then after that we will move on to the larger section. We'll give the hair a nice comb, cross face, And then as we come in here, our shear remains very vertical with the hair so that we're creating maximum softness. So the more diagonal that shear enters the hair, the stronger the texture is going to be all the way to horizontal. When you cut something horizontal, although you think you're cutting it blunt, the reality is that is like the densest way to cut hair. So you're going to have the strongest line available. If the shear goes into the hair very parallel, you're creating the softest line you can possibly create. So if you think about that, it's almost like graduation, horizontal graduation versus vertical graduation. Those same rules apply when you're talking about creating texture or cutting a face frame or cutting a perimeter. It's the very simple rules that you can keep in your arsenal when you're cutting hair that are going to make sure that you have continuity inside your haircuts. All right, so now we're on to our large section. We're crossing face, and that shear is sticking very parallel with the hair as we go in and create our chips. So now just by doing that, you see we've taken off some hair and we've really started to open that up. So now we want to detail that. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'll show you guys what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn Haley to the side a little bit, and I'm just going to comb her hair a little bit and watch the way it kind of falls. You can already see that beautiful face frame that we've created right there. But let's give Haley a little tuck. Let's see what she likes to do. And then if you feel like there's something that's too long, or you want to add those soft detail pieces, now's the time to do it. So we'll come in here and just very gently, we're not slide cutting, we're actually doing what I like to call an access cut. And the access cut will open and close the shear as it works its way down the shaft. So it looks like that. You're using the axis of the blade because the axis of the blade is typically the sharpest part of your shear. Turn it this way. Give this a little tuck. Everything tucks behind the ear. That's good. Bring this out here. Just going to soften that up just a little bit. So again, we come in with our access cut and work that section. Okay, so now we've set the boundary or the base for our layers. Okay, and so our layers, we want to create the softest layers possible, almost ghost layers, because Haley is a very active lifestyle. She likes to do a lot of things. Her outfits change daily. She can go from glam to street to all these different things. So she has to have the ability to style her hair multiple ways. She doesn't want to be pigeonholed in like one-way styling, which happens a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here. We're going to take a 1-inch section that runs directly down the middle of Haley's head. And that's going to kind of be the start of our layers. We're going to come in here like that. We've got our guideline underneath from our face frame. So we're going to just deep point cut this to that guideline. We're not going to remove all the hair, but we're going to remove pieces of the hair to the guideline of that face frame. So that's going to start to open this up and create a lot of softness for Haley. Our next section, take her down, is going to be a triangle section. So we're going to go from the high point of the head, and we're going to bring that section all the way to the temple. We're going to comb this straight out. We've got our guideline underneath from our face frame. Same situation. Come in. You notice the shear itself is very parallel with the hair when we're going in when we're point cutting. And so by doing that, we're still creating maximum softness, but we're also starting to get real good movement. Turn your head that way. So you can start to see how we're opening that up. This is also going to allow Haley to get a little bit more volume inside of her hair, which I think is going to be really exciting for her. All right, so again, top of the crown, triangle section, goes all the way to the temple. We're going to come in. We've got our guideline underneath, guideline check. Now we come in, very parallel point cut. That parallel point cut is going to create maximum softness. And we're just going to dust the end so that we have nice, healthy hair to work with. All right, so that's now done in 3 sections of layering. So now what I want to do is I want to take a horizontal section that runs across Haley's parietal ridge. All right, so the parietal ridge is that kind of portion of the hair, or excuse me, portion of the head where the head starts to round itself. I'm going to take all this, I'm going to comb all this forward, and I'm going to look for some dead ends, which we see. We're going to remove those and then come in and soften that line with that very vertical point cut. Again, maximum softness. And then when we start to brush this back, you can already see how Haley's hair is opening up and how it's changed just from this minimal work done, but maximum results. And that's kind of the idea, right? How do we deliver the most value to our clients behind the chair, right? So now we got that. So now I'm going to turn Haley to the side just a little bit. Now we've got all this great stuff happening up here. What do we do about this back section? How do we connect that? So it's going to be very important because Haley has kind of a medium density hair. It's almost like, I guess, an illusion, if you will, because it looks like Haley has really thick hair, but I would say that she's in the medium density realm. And so we want to make sure that this back stays as strong as possible. So by doing this and over directing this, you see how we take this section, we're over directing it all the way in front of her face. We're forcing this hair to travel a very far way. And by doing that, we know we're going to salvage length and density, right? So again, we're just going to come in, softly point cut that off, get rid of any dry ends so that we make sure that Haley feels good about her hair. And then when we turn her around and I comb that section down, you can see we've got maximum softness in the layers. So there is no line of layering because of that over direction. It's giving you that really gradated layer effect. All right, so I'm going to turn Haley back. Right about there. So next section. So these sections are going to be done. If you were to take an aerial view of Haley's head, it would look like a pizza. So these sections are going to be done in like a pizza pie format. But it's important that when I take this section, notice the over direction. If I turn her straight on, that over direction is coming across Haley's face. So the section is over directing itself in a straight line. We're not over directing it to the middle. We're over directing it in a straight line so that we get continuity inside the back of Haley's head with her layers. Okay, so we'll pull this section, drag it across, come in, and then we're going to do just a very parallel point cut, removing the dry ends, and just chipping ourselves through Haley's haircut. Next section, again, like I said, if you were to aerial view this, it would look as though we were cutting a pizza pie. So if we watch this section, it's going to come through, over direct completely across Haley's head, drop the shoulder so you can see, and then just point cut that. So now, turn Haley to this side, and we've just kind of slightly combed that hair back. Look at how that flows. Look at how those layers kind of flow into each other. Now, currently, like I said, all we've done for Haley is a rough dry. So we have not done any sort of styling, and her hair is already starting to look 100% wearable. And I feel like she would be extremely confident walking out of my chair with just, the rough dry, which I think is very important. We can't just give haircuts that clients are expected to have to overstyle or consistently style, because the reality is on a daily basis, people are busy and people are moving. So wash and go hair is something that has to be taken into consideration. And a lot of times that is decided during the consultation when you figure out how much time, is Haley willing to commit to her hair on a daily basis. And I know Haley because Haley works with me. And so Haley's answer is sometimes an hour, other times 0. Just depends on the day. And so I want Haley to feel confident walking out of the hair, walking out of the house, even with wet hair. All right, so you can see we've really started to create this really just wonderful shape. Look at how that's opening up Haley's jawbone here. It's really accentuating the highlights of Haley's face. And so this is just a really simple way, guys, to bring a lot of value to your clients behind the chair. Not everything has to be over thought out, overcut, and overdone. Sometimes just going in and creating these simple little placements of layers, these softness of layers, working that face frame in a large enough section too, right? A lot of times this face frame, we start with this real tiny little triangle here and we don't go wide enough. And so we really don't end up opening the face with that face frame. All right, so we're going to go through and add some texture to Haley's hair. I want it to be a lived in texture. I don't want it to be overdone. So I'm going to spray a little bit of our brushable hairspray. The brushable hairspray is a great dry hold hairspray. So this dry hold hairspray is going to allow you to help set this curl a little bit or set this texture that I'm working with, and then be able to manipulate the hair afterwards. It's not wet, it's not alcohol rich, so you're not going to get the effect of using like an alcohol product before you put heat on it and it gets crispy. This is going to stay very soft, very pliable, and easy for us to manipulate in the styling portion. Okay, so we're going to start by just rolling that hair here, rolling it down to the base because I want to get a little movement, and then sliding that hair out. So by sliding that hair out, we actually don't fully curl this front section. We give it a little bit of curl at the base to get some movement, and then when you slide that hair through the curling iron, what you end up getting is you end up getting a wave almost as if we're treating the curling iron like a flat iron, but not an overdone curl. And so it's a great way to work those front sections so that those don't get too done. Next, we're going to take this side section. We've got roughly about a 1-inch section. I'm going to set this in the iron, and I'm just going to lightly tap the iron here. Now, one of the things when you do something like this is when you're holding that hair, you got to make sure that that hair has enough kind of give to it so that it can actually go in there and the iron can do its work. If you're stretching that hair too tight, it's going to be very hard for you to get any sort of movement out of that wave down at the base, right? So remember that key when you're working in this with this type of styling technique. You really don't want to have too much pressure on that section. So if I'm pulling on Haley's hair like this, it's not going to allow the iron to get into its work. So I need to gently hold that hair in place. You'll notice as well, I'm taking that iron and I'm actually over directing that section up. So if you think about it like a volume pin curl or something along those lines, we're actually trying to create a little bit of volume at the base, almost like, in my opinion, something like a natural humidity type lift at the base. We don't want it to be overly volumized. We're just trying to create that, like, I woke up like this kind of look, right? Because that's one of the things I think that is very important to learn how to achieve in order to create the right looks for our clients today, because a lot of our clients love that kind of lived-in look. And sometimes, you know, people tend to do this with a flat iron, but I think that when you use the flat iron on this, sometimes those waves can look too created, and so you lose that idea of a lived-in look. So again, when I come through here, it's just a little tap tap with the iron. I'm not putting too much pressure on it, just enough for the iron to do its work. And you can see we're starting to get just a really nice kind of natural lived-in texture that Haley's going to be able to play with. Now, when you're going through and you're styling hair, it's always important to remember, in my opinion, two things change the way hair sits: heat and water, right? So we can adjust the cuticle format of how Haley's hair looks by using heat, as we are right now, or water. Now, if I go through and I create all this great texture and I do all my styling work, and then I use a product that is very watery, all of a sudden, all that work that I've created is going to start to dissipate. And so I think that's one of the things that's really important when you're talking about, you know, hairsprays or dry texture sprays that you use. You want to make sure that they have a really, really dry finish to them, like our brushable hairspray. That's what makes it such a great product for these types of styles, because that actual finish of it is so dry, but not drying, but dry for the hair, that we're not losing all the work that we've done when we've gone through with our styling uh, iron or whatever round brush, however way we decided to style our hair. Okay, so like I said, two things change the way hair sits, heat and water. So what I want to do is I want to actually adjust myself to the left side of Haley's head because we want to give the sides ample, equal times to cool down. Because if we work ourselves around the head radially, what will happen is that the right side will cool while the left side, as we go through and we break up these curls, will have not had ample time to cool. And so it will be a little bit more droopy than the right side. So we want to make sure that we work one side, work the other side, and then we come through and we work the back section of Haley's head. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have tried cutting like this, or if you already do this, if you've tried styling like this, or if you use a Marcel or you use a clamp iron. I think one of the things that's important to remember with what we do for a living, I think a lot of people get stuck in this is how I do things. And ultimately, that's not a breeding ground for creativity. You have to be willing to try new things because it's through these new adventures where your own personal creativity starts to transform or unfold, right? So if you see a technique or a styling technique and maybe it makes you a little nervous, or maybe you think to yourself, well, I can't use a Marcel. I just don't know how my hands work like that. I would challenge you to train yourself to try the hard things, to train the hard things in your life. That is, one of the most important attributes of kind of creating that growth mindset for yourself, right? Like willing to fail. I was talking to my son the other day, and he said something that was really great. He plays high school football, and they lost their game. And he was a little frustrated, and maybe he wasn't getting, maybe the looks. He's a wide receiver, the looks he desired. And what he said to me was provocative. And mind you, he's 16 years old. He said, at the end of the day, Dad, all that matters is that we fail forward. And I thought that that was really a cool thing for him to say, especially at 16, because there's always going to be points in your life where things are difficult or, quote unquote, you're going to fail. But it's how you fail that matters most. Do you fail forward? Do you learn from it? Have you grown from that? And that is what is going to help kind of start to render and feed, that growth mindset versus I failed, I suck, I'm never going to try it again. So try and have that growth mindset where you're just trying to become, just that 1% better every day. And part of that goes to what we spoke about last week in our LFG podcast here. And, it's setting up that daily habits for yourself that are going to kind of get your mind in the right place and get you ready for those moments when things get a little bit tougher. So as you can see, we're just, again, still just rocking this iron through the hair, just creating these little soft bends, creating these really nice pieces of texture. You can see definitely not, the same type of iron set as if we were to go through and roll our curl. Now you can also mix and match. So you could do a section of this mixed with a section of like a roll of a curl or a wrap. Like you can mix and match this set, these curl sets, and create a very nice kind of beachy, lived in kind of feeling as well. So again, we just come in, roll in the iron, and then we just run the iron through the ends just to give it a little bit of bend, because I think that's something that's really important too. Like if you are just wrapping your curls around your iron but leaving the ends out, those ends are going to have a totally different appearance to them because they're not going to have the same finish as the rest of the hair. So it's extremely important that you give those ends that treatment of heat, because it's that treatment of heat that helps seal down the cuticle, especially when you're using the proper products to make sure that you're keeping the integrity of that hair. All right, so now we're going to work the back section. And you can see, like in salon speed, like this can go really fast, equally as fast as your normal kind of curl set, if you will. So you just want to come in, and just work these sections. Again, key, do not stretch that hair too tight as you're coming in here and you're trying to create these little bend pockets of texture, if you will. All right, so turn Haley all the way around so you guys can get a better view of this. Now my sections are roughly, about a half of an inch in thickness this way. You don't want to have too much hair, because if you have too much hair, you're not going to get a nice bend in the hair. So here you guys can see this really well. So again, we're elevating this section. So if you think of like a roller set or a pin curl set, we are now currently off base. And that is how we start to create that kind of volume. And we're going to take our next section, we roll it over the bottom portion of the iron, and you just keep switching. And so now we roll this over the top portion of the iron. You see how loose we're holding that in order to make sure that we get that bend in the hair. All right, next section. And really what you notice is that when you work through the back, you're going to kind of get about 3 subsections per section, right? So those 3 subsections of curl as we work ourselves through this back portion of the head. And you can even like push this curl in a little bit. You see what that does to that curl on top. It allows that to stay loose as it cools, because if you start to pull on this as it's cooling on that top portion of our curl, as it's cooling, you're going to already start to pull out the wave that you've been working hard to create. So again, I'm going to come in here. See, that section is elevated above our section line. Let's go a little bit more to the side. There we go. Next section, I'm going to roll it up like that. And then it's going to start to create these really nice little pockets of texture that are really going to shine through with Haley's, lived-in blonde that she has, right? And so you got to remember too, the styles that you create should accentuate, the haircut and the color that's going on. And same thing with the products that you choose. So for example, if I'm going through, I'll show you guys here, I'm going to do a section of curls that's just a wrap so you can see how you can mix. But if I'm going through Haley's hair, I'm not looking for my products to create the haircut. I'm looking for my products to enhance the haircut. So a lot of times, like if you're not seeing the texture that you want to see inside of a haircut, and you think that the product in and of itself is not giving you enough texture, I'm going to question that statement. And I'm going to ask you, did you cut the texture you want to see? You've seen as we've gone through here and we've done all of our styling and cutting on Haley's hair, these layers are seamless. And so I know that I've created the texture I wanted to see inside Haley's haircut. So the great thing about the products that I'm going to choose to use to finish Haley's haircut is that what they are going to do is they're just going to enhance the look that we've created for Haley today. And that's really the job. That's why they're called finishing products. They're not called haircut products. The haircut in and of itself has to be what gives you the texture that you want. The haircut itself has to be, ultimately creating the desired look that you guys had throughout your consultation. All right, so another thing really exciting, guys, don't forget, I believe that it's later on this week on Wednesday, we got Katie doing some more color work for you guys on the Freedom Network. And Katie's just really, really great person to learn from, guys. She's just a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of all things color. And so really excited to have her doing another podcast later this week. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really important for you guys to tune in and learn about all things Rusk, all things color. And so here we're coming through and we're mixing back in that original curl pattern that we were doing, so you guys will be able to see how those curls play well together and your set process when you're working yourself through. So again, slide through that end. We're not looking to straighten that end. We're just looking to give that end a little bit of smoothness, because it's the heat of the iron that's going to also help seal the cuticle along with the product that you choose to use. So we're gonna come in here so you guys can really see from the side. You can see how you really can elevate and over direct the top of that section to help create just some internal volume, right? Again, remember we talked about this in the beginning. What we were trying to create is almost like that little, I stepped out on a humid day and created some nice natural volume, inside my hair. All right, next section. So we just work these sections. And sometimes it's going to take about 3 to 4 of the little taps. Sometimes it's going to take 2. It just depends on the length of that hair and how much texture you're trying to create, right? So the closer that we incorporate the iron taps, if you will, the closer you incorporate those, the more texture that you're going to see. The further that you push those away from each other, the less texture you're going to see. So if I want more texture, I'm going to come right under that first section and then go back up. And then right under that last section and go back up. And so I start to really create a Marcel set by having the backside or the portion of the iron that's closest to the head almost touching the ridge of the previously done curl. And you can see how then it gives you a little bit more texture inside there. All right, so we're going to work on our last section here. Now, another thing to remember, guys, you see I just run my wide tooth portion of my comb through there. So how the hair itself, how the hair enters the iron is going to determine, how smooth that hair gets, right? So you have to remember, if we're putting heat on hair that's got a lot of snags in it or it's not combed out smooth, then you can't expect for that section to sit as smooth. So the smoother the hair going into the iron, the smoother the result of that curl itself, right? And so remember that as you go through and you're doing your iron work as well, is that you want to really just get a nice little smooth. I like to use the wide tooth portion of my comb. I feel like that ultimately gives me the right smoothness for a lived-in type look. If I'm doing an iron set for, say, a wedding or something that requires that hair to be really, really smooth, then I'm going to work the small tooth portion of my comb so that I can get just a little bit extra pull and grip on that hair as it's going through. All right, so I'm going to turn Haley to the front. And you can see we've got these curls have all had time to set, so that's really nice. You can feel them, they're nice and cool. If the back in and of itself doesn't necessarily cool as much, no big deal, because we like that to drop down a little bit. So now I'm going to come in with our texture spray here, a nice dry texture spray. So I'm going to have you flip your hair forward, Haley, for me. So Haley's going to flip her hair down like this. You can see as this product comes out, it's a nice, firm, but light mist. And I think that that's something that's really important. You want that mist to be light when you're working with a dry texture spray because you don't want it to overpower the looks that you're creating. So we're coming in, working ourselves through. And now you can see what I'm going to do. Keep your hair down there real quick. I'm going to pull Haley's hair up. And I'm going to take this wide tooth comb. You guys see this? And I'm just going to comb through her ends. Okay? Just comb through the ends. Just take out any kind of snarls that may have happened. And I'm going to have you come up slow, Haley. And start to separate out this section. And what you can see now, as we go through here, we've got this really, really great kind of lived-in texture. The dry texture spray has really helped emphasize our style, and I think that like we talked about, it's not a haircut product. The job of the dry texture spray is to come through and ultimately just enhance what we've done. Now, this is one of my favorite products, if not my favorite product right here, the finishing cream. Something about the finishing cream, when you think about the finishing cream, think about it as like a non-greasy light lotion for your hair. And so this is going to help seal down any loose ends. It's going to help give you a little bit of light definition, but not to the point where you are creating something that can't be moved and can't be played with. So great for next day hair, just to add a little bit of shine, a little bit of reflectivity back into the hair. Really important, I think in modern hairstyling and modern style. So a great second day product, great first day product, just to come in and give us a little bit of control and a little bit of style. So there you go. There you have it. Haley, turn to the side for me. So you can see when Haley turns to the side, notice this face frame. You see how it's all flowing back with each other and really starting to create just a nice kind of overall finish for Haley. Rough that up a little bit as well. And she's got all these nice soft pieces. I think this is going to be a really, really great look for Haley. Something that she's going to have a lot of fun with, and something that I think that will be really applicable to your clients, behind the chair as well. So awesome, Haley. Thank you so much. I'll let you just get a little closer to the camera for a little finish real quick so everyone can see you. Yeah, it looks nice. Haley, you look so good. All right, you go check it out. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, Haley. All right, friends. So, anyone have any questions about what we did today, about what we did with Haley? I think it's a really, really great technique for you to bring, behind the chair for yourself and for your fellow colleagues at the salon. Also, like I said, my favorite product, where did I put it? Right here, right there. See it? Finishing cream. Think about the finishing cream, like I said, as just a very, very light, non-greasy lotion for the hair. So this is going to be great for all hairstyles. If you're somebody who does event styles, wonderful for kind of like smoothing out those sections before you work with, because it's not greasy. It's not going to affect the bobby pin placement. It's also not going to react when you spray hairspray over the top. Some of those things react and they push the hairspray away. And so you end up seeing, where you've sprayed hairspray. But the great deal with the finishing cream is that it's still going to absorb that hairspray and it's still going to allow that style to set in if you want to use hairspray at the end. All right, guys. Well, if there are no questions, I want to thank you so much for joining us, joining me, I should say, on our second LFG podcast. I hope you guys learned something today. And remember, like we talked about earlier, it's all about working towards that growth mindset and failing forward. Really important. We're all going to have failures. And if we don't have failures, that means we're not doing enough. So just fail forward, keep that growth mindset. Tune in 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. KTV Hair is going to bring some more wonderful color education for you guys. So once again, Matt Swinney, thank you very much, and I will see you next week.